it's Bree here, back with Becoming Dr. Baker. Thanks for tuning in. As usual, I did not rehearse this. Okay, let's try it again. Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning in to Becoming Dr. Baker this week, where I'm going to talk about 5 questions that you should ask as a BIPOC individual and aspiring applicants and prospective students to different PhD programs. These are more so tailored towards clinical and counseling psychology PhD programs, but I think that they can be applied to whatever PhD program you're applying to. I'll also say that these questions can be asked by whoever you want. You don't have to be a BIPOC individual, but I do think that these are especially important and imperative questions to ask that will contribute to your ultimate success in the program and overall, just feeling like you belong in different programs. And I'll explain later, but here are 5 questions that you should definitely ask. So I know some people are like, Bree, why are you making special questions for special populations? But the fact is that PhD programs are notoriously difficult for Black, Indigenous, and people of color applicants to these programs. We have a lot of different stressors and other structural barriers that make things super hard, and I'm not going to go into that because it's going to start to sound like a research talk, and I also am going to sound like a broken record, but there are special considerations and things to be mindful of when you are applying to PhD programs as someone who has a historically marginalized identity. Therefore, in order to find the best supports and find the best program fit for you, there are questions that can be more targeted that you shouldn't be afraid to ask because you want to be in a program that is going to support you holistically and whatever that means for you as an individual. During my interview process and even my application process and my personal statements, I was very vocal about my identity as a Black woman and what I needed in order to succeed in a PhD program, as well as things that I'd like to see happen and things that I may implement myself because they don't exist. So I wanted a program to be equally as on fire and passionate about Black women, about other marginalized groups of people as I am. Now, whether or not special populations or diverse populations are actually a part of your research interests, I still think it's super important to ask some of these questions because you do want to feel at home in your program. So, question number 1. What kind of supports do you offer for minority students or for first-generation students? Things like clubs or an office of diversity, inclusion, and equity, or scholarships and fellowships, these are all really important things to know. When you don't fit the mold of being your typical white researcher, you may be used to being a pioneer for certain spaces and having to do a lot of things on your own, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way. There are programs out there who are actively working towards making environments that are more inclusive and feel more at home for students like us. You'll be under enough stress as a PhD student as is, and you don't want the additional stress of having to constantly be your only advocate and to find other spaces that affirm you that are separate from your program. Will you need to do that? Most definitely, but does it need to be a constant and an expectation? Absolutely not. And also be on the lookout for the super cookie cutter answer of, yes, we have many supports as seen through our office. No, actually go contact the office, talk to different students if they've actually utilized their diversity office and what kind of events or supports that the office actually brings to their students, because existing is not enough. Question number 2. Are there any opportunities for cross-collaboration with other labs, researchers, or even other departments? Every program that you apply to is going to have a different feel and a different take on what it means to be a collaborator. For my program, they collaborate all the time. All the time. And I feel like collaboration is encouraged even through other departments. You can take classes in other departments, you can seek out different research opportunities through other departments, and so you can kind of mold your experience to what you want it to be and to fit you. This is especially important for BIPOC or first-generation students who may have interests that don't necessarily lie so concretely and so perfectly packaged within the department that they're in. In my case, there were a lot of researchers at Teachers College who I thought did really amazing work and that I'd want the opportunity to open a conversation about collaborating with. And so I wanted to find somewhere and be in a place that definitely emphasized that and encouraged it. If your advisor or your program kind of pigeonholes you into just researching within your lab, you have to make sure that that lab is on point, because, you know, that could get boring after a while, or there may be some different dynamics in the lab that you may want to escape from. And so you always want the opportunity to be able to at least cross-collaborate and seek out other opportunities to supplement your learning and your growth as a researcher. And this ties into question number 3. What community partnerships exist that this program or department collaborates with? For degrees like clinical and counseling psychology, where there is a fieldwork or practicum component, you want to be somewhere that has these community partnerships already established and not ones that you necessarily have to make on your own. So this can look like a variety in practicum options. So if they have maybe a community center that focuses on your particular population that you're interested in, as well as different hospitals with a specialization in a diagnosis, you want to be somewhere that has these community organizations that are kind of tied in, or at least familiar with the university and the work that you all do through the program, so that you can volunteer or be a part of this for when you are applying for internships and externships. There's also a lot to be said about moving to another city for a PhD program. You can feel really isolated, and when all you have is your program to rely on for connection and support, it can feel really lonely. You want to be able to be integrated in the community and feel a part of it. So community partnerships are a great way to do this, and especially to integrate, you know, your love and passion for research, as well as just wanting to fit in and be a part of something bigger than the program or bigger than yourself. And it's also important because when your school or program or advisor doesn't offer you necessarily the exact research experiences or experiences in general that you would like, it's cool to have community partnerships and organizations that you can go to supplement that. I think it's something to be said. I mean, not every program is going to have your research interest to a T matched with your advisor, and that's totally fine. You can pick an advisor who does something in the realm of what you want to do, but may not necessarily focus on that particular subset of people or that population or that methodology or modality or whatever it may be. That's totally fine, but it's important that you ask about the flexibility of being able to research and do the things that you want to do in the program. A great question to ask is, hey, I read your paper on blank and I really enjoyed it because of blank. Have you ever considered, broadening or refining it to focus on this particular subset, population, or geographic location, or whatever it may be that you yourself are interested in? This shows the faculty member that you are super interested, that you've done your research, and that you've thought about how it can be expanded to help even more people. And who doesn't like that? If they haven't considered it or, thought about refining or broadening their research, ask them if they would be amenable to that and say that that's something that you would like to bring to the program. I think that's super important and shows that you're interested and that you're thoughtful and that you're passionate about what you're researching. My last question is super bold, and it does take some guts to ask this, but I think it's really important to making sure that you are somewhere where you want to be for the next 5+ years. Like I said before, PhD programs are difficult, and they're especially difficult for people who have identities that have been historically marginalized and have to deal with a bunch of structural or interpersonal or sociopolitical things that may make it harder for them to succeed in programs. So for people like us, I think that it's really important to just ask, have you ever mentored a Black woman or Asian man or Latina woman before? If so, how was that experience? And if not, is there a reason why? I think that's really important to ask. Because you don't want to hide your identity. Your identity makes you unique. And for a lot of us, we get into this research because our identities have prompted us to want to help others who look like us and who have similar experiences. And you want an advisor and you want to be around students and a program that is going to look at that identity and affirm it and validate it and want you to do more with it. The last thing you want to do is hide and, shield away your Blackness, because that's what makes you you, or shield away your gayness or your first generationness. You don't want to do that. You don't necessarily want to draw attention to it, but if it's an identity that is super salient for you and that is going to impact how you feel and how you fit within the program, I think that you have to bring attention to it. So thank you all for listening. If you agree or have any comments, please like and share this video. Also subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you all next week.